Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Advancing Consciousness Podcast. It's always great to get together with you guys. And today is episode 20, and we're going to be looking at the reliance on fossil fuels being manufactured. Some of you may have figured that out already. Others are just coming to the idea that, oh, is it? So stay tuned and let's play. All right. So let's play with the topic of fossil fuels. I mean, it's like what do they call it? The lifeblood of our planet or our society and so forth, because we've put a lot of reliance on fossil fuels. If you look at it, all forms of transportation, energy, resources is somehow related to it, no matter how we look at it. Now, of course, there are some bits and pieces that are generated using, windmills or using, in some cases, solar panels and whatever else. So there are certain other alternative technologies being used, but it's a very minuscule amount because everything else is just built around fossil fuels. And it makes you wonder. We've made so many advancements. And there is so much being said here and there that there are alternative ways to operate or to provide energies that are required for certain technologies to exist, or to even give us the opportunity to be able to experience life much more freely, because it takes away from some of our regular tasks and so forth. But anyways, when we really look at it, have we actually looked at the idea of saying, okay, can we now, let's say this, are we ready to allow these other alternatives? And I'm not talking about windmills, and I'm not talking about solar panels or anything of that nature. We have much more advanced capacities and capabilities. And again, some of the other things I've talked about in other episodes. If you look at even the transportation world, all of it is running on fossil fuels pretty well. Yes, there's the introductions of electric cars, and that has come into the live stream at this point in time. Also, however, what's that electricity coming from? It needs to be generated. And again, a small percentage of something that is what they call renewable fuels. The rest of it is fossil fuels. Okay, some is using, the movement of the water or whatever it is in a falls or something of that nature. But the bulk of it is through some form of fossil fuels. So as much as it's not burning the fuels, it is recharging itself with an electrical supply that is utilizing fossil fuels for the most part. Now, I know some of the recharging stations are using solar panels and so forth, so you could say, well, it's an improvement. Yes, it is. It is an improvement. It is an improvement to some degree. Can't deny that. But if you look at it, everything else that is utilized in a big way is all related to fossil fuels. And this is right throughout the whole world. And you see the cars becoming more sophisticated, the trucks and everything else. They're becoming more sophisticated with more technologies and whatever else. But when you really look at it, we're still down to combustible engines that use fossil fuels. And then, of course, a lot of our food preparation and a lot of our so-called chemicals and chemistries that we use in the production of food and so forth are all related to fossil fuels. Now, can we use much less? Absolutely. I mean, the first step would be to look at, say, well, how much are we using for duplication, replication, under the banner that we need to do this or that, or using it very inefficiently and so forth. Yeah, that'll reduce it. Of course, then we can look at, well, can we advance the technologies where we're not requiring fossil fuels or any types of oils in this case? Of course, there's natural gas and propane and whatever else. Well, propane's made out from the oil part of it. But at the same time, when we look at it, how much of it are we really looking at shifting from that usage of using those fossil fuels to something much more efficient? Not only more efficient, actually no requirement. Because we have the technologies. We have the technologies for our transportation not to function the way it is. Not utilizing combustion engine. Even going more advanced in the sense of the electrical part of it, but it can go even further than that. The requirement of roads and whatever is designed for it is also non-reliance on that. If we really look at it and start utilizing even the technologies that were shared in the early 1900s, even some of the stuff that Tesla had brought to the forefront over 100 years ago. We had some technology that we were using then that did not require fossil fuels. But what happened? Yeah, a cluster of our collective, what we can call a group of people, decided that, hey, we're not going to explore there. We want to use fossil fuels because that will require much more infrastructure, much more energy from people to be able to do and to refine it and processes and so forth. And then we can control the flow of it. We can control also how it is used. And then, of course, a reliance was established because the infrastructure just kept growing in its usage as the population grew, as we wanted to have more technology and freer movement or easier movement, then the reliance kept growing. Was there any time that we explored, hey, instead of keeping this old way of doing things, let's look at something different. Something that is actually not impactful to the environment and humanity. Something that does not require the same amount of effort and creating unnecessary handling and so forth and restriction. No. Because we got onto the idea that fossil fuels is the lifeblood of our civilization. Because if we unplugged it, then all these jobs go. All these industries go. All of these hierarchies start to alter and flatten out. We cannot continue to push the agenda of survival and struggle and so forth. I know even what's happening now with the elections and so forth and whatever is going on, there's been a lot of focus about, green energy and also, keeping the fossil fuels alive and well because it produces a lot of jobs and produces a lot of industries. So, that mentality is still there. And even don't think that the green energy that they're talking about is in any way, shape, or form that much better. We'd have to really say, okay, it's time for us now to see that this is no longer our focus. We're going to shift away from using fossil fuels. Let's collaborate. Let's take out of the closet some of the technologies, see how they can be advanced, and start to utilize these technologies to have not only free, clean energy, but to use technologies that are not impeding in the way they have now, that is not impactful to the climate, is not impactful, in this case, the environment and on humanity. It's that. And saying, we're okay closing down, collapsing various industries, because we are now going to look at how we can provide for a transitional period whatever resources and redirect our industries or redirect our efforts and energies on a global scale to create a better environment rather than doing something that is non-fulfilling but only provides us what we call a job so that we can survive. If we drop that and we put our focus on how can we make things better and use our resources to find ways that will support us long term with the key of advancement as we go along, we're going to find that we will be way better off personally, on the planet, environmentally, and will accelerate the progress that we have made so far. Mind-blowing levels, because we're not restricted to holding on to old ideas and industries and constructs and so forth, and reliances. When we're looking at oil, it may not come out of the equation 100% along the way. Yes, there's a transitional period, but there are other things that are made through it. But we can also look at how we make things so that it is not utilizing it in a wasteful way or consuming much more than we require. As part of what I was talking about before in the other episodes, if we put our focus on betterment of the collective, of all humanity, and we start removing the necessities for the idea of jobs and make work projects and so forth, and focus on how can we utilize our energies, resources, and our collaboration to create a better environment, we will see a lot of the different industries and replications will start to dissolve. We will unplug it. We don't have to have disposability. We do not need to have things that are constantly required to be upgraded. We will not have many duplications of the same, utilizing the poorest of qualities so that we continue to consume and produce more, under the idea that we need to have an economy, which we'll talk about in another episode. Because that becomes very powerful. We have to maintain an economy. What does that mean? Exchange, movement, people working, busy, and so forth. Isn't that just a construct, an idea that may have served at one point when we wanted to get all bound up and locked up in that idea and play it to that extent of the polarity, haves and have-nots, and survival and so forth? Do we need an economy? We will shift into a higher consciousness as we are doing so more and more, and we're going to look at what do we really need. We're not going to manufacture needs. We're not going to convince you that you need the latest of this or that. We're not going to brainwash anybody to think, okay, for me to feel happy, to feel good, to be accepted, I need to consume this, and this, or I got to wear this, or I got to have this fashionable, whatever it is. And I have to continue to upgrade, or else I'm not accepted. I'm going to look out of the context of everybody else. By shifting that, you will reduce tremendously the amount we are producing and the amount of waste. Because it's just a concept, just an idea that we're still holding on to. And the reliance of fossil fuels is because we believe that it's absolutely necessary. First of all, because there are no better solutions, which is not true. And there's lots to prove it, and lots of patents proving it, but a lot of times the patents are bought and buried. And then the other part of it is, not only is there not a better solution, what will we do if we don't have that? And then if you look at the technologies that run on so-called fossil fuels, they're very inefficient. Not only inefficient, they're also designed to not last, wear and tear to such an extreme that we're constantly replacing it, using more fossil fuels. Because if you look at it, all the manufacturing plants are using a combination of gas, electric, oils, lots and lots of energy, under the banner that we require an economy, that everybody needs to work. Everybody needs a job. Do we really? Is that what we came here to do? To survive? We came here as a powerful being with powerful imagination, powerful creativity, bringing forth such a powerful skill set, only to be programmed, conditioned, taught to what? Survive, to get a job, to make it and live life on those terms. How many of us through our life have been so excited to do so? Yes, the carrot has been dangled, saying, okay, when you get to this point and you have such a career, you have such resources and so forth, you'll have a happy life, a better life, and so forth. You'll be loved and accepted by others. But how many of us felt that inside? That's exactly what I want to do. What do I really want to do? Yes, I would love to have freedom. I love to create an experiment and so forth. And some of you will come in because of the fact that you have new skill sets that would advance technology, advance humanity, without the requirement of older technologies or methodologies. That's even the word. We're not going to put power into that. We're putting our power into, okay, how can we create an environment where we all flourish, we all play, we all experience, and that's it. What is it going to take? This is the thing. So when we go back to the title, reliance on fossil fuel is manufactured. Absolutely 100%. Not only is it manufactured, it keeps getting supported. It keeps convincing us that it's absolute necessary. We cannot do without it. It's the lifeblood of our economy, of our world. The question is it really? Yes, under these conditions and rules and systems that we've put into place, absolutely. It certainly looks that way. But are we ready to shift it? Are we ready to put that away so that it no longer is the driving force for ourselves? Are we ready to say, okay, we're not going to do that anymore? We're going to look at how we can create a different way of experiencing ourselves on this beautiful playground while respecting one another, all sentient beings, the planet, our environment. Because we're going to be in harmony. Yes, we can produce whatever energies we require without the use of fossil fuels. But it's not just replacing it, it's also looking at what we're using it for. How much of the things that we are producing and putting our energy and so forth is necessary. You came to be you, and that you is very unique, and that you came here to play and experience in freedom. Something to ponder on in this episode. So, with the realization that it's all manufactured and it's all still supported, we now understand that we have the opportunity to shift it. All we need to do is shift our state of consciousness and say, okay, we're not supporting this system any longer. We're not going to demonize it. And yes, it's going to be a bridging effect because we still have to do certain things. But let's start taking a look at these technologies. Let's intervene and let's create technologies, even using some of the older technologies temporarily until we upgrade along the way to produce energies in a cleaner fashion, in a natural fashion, using technologies we've had available and never explored. Because the thing is, every time a new technology that makes one other technology obsolete, when it comes to the fossil fuel world, or oil, or whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of resistance. And there is a lot of effort to make sure what advances it is not brought to the forefront. Now it's time for us to stop that game and be able to be ready, open to bring in all of these capacities for ourselves. So we are no longer supporting this whole idea of reliance on fossil fuels. We're done with that. We're done. We're here to move on. And that's what we're here to do, is move on. So, we'll see you in the next episode. Please do not forget, if this work resonates for you, please feel free to contribute, to support us and the work that we are doing so we can focus on the content more fully. And also that we have a workshop coming up on December the 5th and the 6th. It's a 2-day workshop, donational based. Links are below for both. So go ahead, check it out, and we'll see you in the next episode.